You have Patrick Findaro here, managing partner and co-founder at Visa Franchise. Excited to be joined by our former client, Antonio Almada. He's a franchisee of DreamMaker Kitchen and Bath, just up the highway in Hollywood, Florida, from our office here in Miami Beach. Antonio, thanks for taking the time to connect today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I want to go through, why the US, why DreamMaker, why move to South Florida. But before, I guess, kicking it off, why leave Belo Horizonte? You had a booming business there. Why make the move to the US?
Well, there was a lot of personal reasons. I do have a company in Brazil. I did have a good job. I did have a good life in Brazil. So it's not that I had like a huge opportunity, but from all of the reasons why I think security was one of the biggest
You're saying
ones.
personal security, like you didn't feel
Yes.
safe walking around the streets,
Yeah,
or now that you have two kids, like having your kids grow up in that
exactly. My
environment.
wife and think about it. We used to live in a good neighborhood, but still that doesn't change the fact that Brazil is not a safe place. That's one of the reasons. But of course, there was many other reasons. There are a lot of opportunities in US. I felt that my company wasn't growing like I wanted to
And
grow,
you were
even
all over
though
Brazil.
yes,
You were it's not like you were just in the state of Minas Gerais. Your company was all over Brazil, and you
yeah,
still felt
yeah.
that wasn't like enough.
Yeah, and I know that there's taxes everywhere, but in Brazil, there's a specific type of taxes that you don't see your money growing in your business, And
Well, you
I
can't
felt
send
at
your
some
kids to
point,
public school. I remember talking to friends in Belo Horizonte like 30, 40 years ago, public schools were good. So you paid taxes and you got the benefit back, but
yeah,
now
no,
public schools not an option most places in Brazil, including in Belo
no, no.
Horizonte.
And that's the difference here because my kid, he's in a public school and
Yeah.
it's a very good one. In Brazil, if you take your kid to your public school, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I did public school until what kindergarten through till senior year of high school. Then I went to a private college, and yeah, depending, especially the neighborhood that you live in the U.S., there are amazing public schools that at times are better than the private schools, which was the case
Yeah,
where I
yeah,
grew up in Northern
yeah,
Virginia.
yeah.
Antonio, your business in Brazil, from what I understand, it was a major contracting business. You had big clients like Burger King doing the Heineken, their beer houses throughout Brazil. What attracted you to DreamMaker Kitchen and Bath?
Well, when I first met you, your company, right, you brought me a couple of options to buy a franchise. So first of all, there was a personal reason why I wanted to move, and then there was a business opportunity to move to US to grow, to make more money, to be more successful. But when I first met the opportunities that were presented to me, Dreammaker was the one that was the closest, that I used to do in Brazil. I mean, it's construction, but one is residential, the other one is commercial. It is different. It's not the same business. It's not the same industry, but at least let's call it it's in the same niche. It's in the same category. And the fact that DreamMake is full service, I always like the turnkey processes. So I think that was the best option because it's more. I think was the closest or the relates most with the business that I used to have in Brazil. I mean, which I still own, but I don't currently work there.
And for DreamMaker, I mean, you say residential, but here in South Florida, there's a lot of people that are doing it as business. They're not occupying that space. They're flipping it. They're gonna turn it into an Airbnb, or they're just flipping the house. Where your clients, like, how many of them are kind of investor type clients that are looking to profit from that remodeling versus those that are going to be living and it's their primary home, or they spend like the winters down in Florida.
0 or 100. It's zero investment houses and 100 that people because we are a premium service company, so we do offer this premium
And
treatment.
people are only
So
willing to pay the premium if they're going to enjoy those benefits day to day.
of course,
That
this is
makes
not a
sense.
ROI type of company. It's not a. We're doing that. We call it Dreammaker, right? So we're turning dreams into into reality. So when it comes to an investment house, a flipper, or whatever, they're looking for the most affordable way to do the flipping, the remodel. which is definitely not the way we do. We do it in the right way. We don't cut corners. And we do it in high quality, with a very good customer service. So it's a little different from. I mean, we are general contractors,
Yeah.
but we don't even say that. We're design consultants. You know what I mean? We're design and build type of company. We're not even contract. We don't even say that.
Yeah, I mean, you says it all in the name, but there is an emotional component to that where they, the husband and wife want to live in their house the way that they dreamed it, and not cut corners with certain tiling or flooring, etc.
And because of that, they expect a high quality. They expect, again, I'm being repetitive, but they expect this premium service because that's what they got. That's what they signed up for.
Antonio, so you mentioned the coaching. It's still like 3 years in and you're having weekly coaching sessions. How else are you deriving value from the franchise system, whether from the franchisor or from franchisees?
Patrick, like I said, we bought a name and we bought a process, right? When I signed up with DreamMaker, but the truth is, the true value of the business is the network, is the relationship that we have with the other locations. We call each other and share problems. We share solutions, of course. We have this little group in an email, so you send one message and everybody sees it and responds. Every time that I have a challenge, I put my name out there. I speak up, and someone helps me with something. I can't count as the amount of times that I request help, and I did get my help. And besides, we have a reunion every June or July, I guess. Every year it's in a different place, and we have workshop in Dallas every year, also in January. So it's one in the winter and one in the summer. So we always see each other. We always exchange experiences. And Doug, the franchise owner, he's very good at teaching us and coaching us. Doug was fundamental for my survival during pandemic. He helped me
He's
a lot
great.
with my challenges. Yeah, he's great.
He
So he
really
helped me a
cares.
lot.
Like he's so authentic and like it comes out like, and he lives by the core values of the company.
Exactly. Yeah. He's not playing, man. He's real deal. He's true. He's a good person. I really love that guy. I really respect him a lot. And the power of the network, that's what it really important. I think it's the most valuable thing that we have today.
Yeah, I mean, you have business owners that are doing what, say, $1 million in revenue to some of them, I think, do like 10 mil plus, and they're not in Hollywood, Florida, but they've grown from zero to that revenue amount. They've hired to get there. They've already done all this. So, hopefully you can learn from them to accelerate your growth, whether it's growing top
Yeah.
line revenue or mentoring employees and growing your headcount, et cetera.
Yeah, exactly. I appreciate a lot the team, let's say, the network for sure.
And then taking a step back, so security issues in Brazil, and I've been to Brazil, I don't know, maybe 15 times. I never had something happen to me, but I saw someone get held up by a gun the second month when I was living there as an exchange student. Taxes, return, you went through a lot of reasons why you moved, but why did you decide to go through the E2 visa, leveraging your dual nationality, and why that path versus some other paths to move to the United States?
Well, I had many different meetings with lawyers, with attorney, immigration lawyers, and etc. And that was the best decision because that would fit better what I had. First of all, I didn't have enough money to put on EB5, I guess,
Yeah,
with
at
the
that
green
point, it was
card.
like $500,000.
More than
Yeah,
that, it's close to $700,000.
now
So it's a lot
800.
of money to
Yeah,
invest. Because $500 is just a business, but there are a lot of stuff
that's
involved with
true.
that. And I did have an opportunity to get my Italian citizenship, so that works perfectly because number one, I wanted to have a double citizenship. That's cool. Who knows what the future
I'm in the
brings,
same boat. I
holds
got
me.
it through my great grandfather. It's good to have. It's easy for travel, and yeah, you
Exactly.
don't know
You never know. You never
for
know.
you or the next
The world
generation.
is exactly. Even if it's not for
Yeah,
myself, it can be for my kids, and it's a free world, right? We can go anywhere. And because I had that opportunity to get a new passport in my life, and that was in a certain way was a cheaper type of investment. I didn't have to bring tons of money to invest in the country. I thought that this was the best route.
But you didn't, so like presented the options, because I remember there were some that were definitely less than DreamMaker, and there are bath and kitchen remodeling franchises that are like 100K, 150K, no showroom, guys just operating basically from his truck. What made you go with like the more expensive option with DreamMaker and having a showroom compared to some of the other franchises in the same niche or other just industries that maybe you could have done for less money?
It's an easy answer. I aim high. I always aim high. I felt
Yeah.
that DreamMaker would be a better fit because, I mean, imagine if you're just someone that purchased a name or a small little process and that's it. Everything else is on you. With DreamMaker, it's a process, it's the name, but it's the whole thing. It's the whole environment, it's the core values, it's the way they do business, it's the way they treat people. And I felt that DreamMaker and the company itself, not talking about my own location, but the DreamMaker corporate per se, they are high standard
Yes.
type of franchise. Even to be accepted, there was a nice process. They don't just want to sell
No,
franchises and that's it.
they're growing
It's
steadily. Doug has been the majority of the owner, maybe the sole owner for quite some time when he acquired it. I don't know, 20
yeah,
years ago, and
yeah,
they've grown
exactly.
steadily the unit count, but more than steadily the average sales. Where for other franchises in your space, someone might make 400K of revenue, 500K of revenue, where DreamMaker is, I think the average is like 1.3 or 1.4 million.
Exactly,
So it's like it's a
exactly,
whole different ballpark, and the margins are kind of the
exactly.
same. So
Exactly. So, and that's my point. I mean, I didn't want to start something. I mean, I would start something from the scratch either way, being a franchise or being by myself, doesn't matter. But buying a franchise and having these guys guiding me, teaching me, coaching me, I just said it's been 3 years and I still have weekly calls with my coach. That was very helpful. And I felt that these guys, they will really bring me to another level, and that's completely true compared to what I had 3 years ago and what I have today. That's completely right. It really turned the way I thought it would.
what were some of the biggest surprises, like doing business in the US and like the American consumer coming from Brazil?
A lot. Basically, I had to relearn everything, Patrick. Relearn. I have relearned sales. I had to relearn construction because the way we do construction in Brazil, and I've done some houses, I've done some apartments, I've done some residential construction. It has nothing to do. It has nothing to do with the way that they do it in here. Sales has absolutely nothing. I would say like this: it's completely the opposite of
Yeah.
what I
It
I was
seems we've
supposed.
had clients all over the world. I see like Brazil, you become friends first and then you do business. Where in the US, it seems like you have a good service or product and people just like buy. You have to deliver on it,
Exactly.
but people will buy without barely knowing much about you. They do research
Yeah.
online and then they just make a decision.
Yeah, and of course, Patrick, culture, right? I mean, I'm here for 5 years, but I'm still Latino. I'm still from Brazil. That's not gonna change. And culture was a little different. Now I'm gonna say I feel very comfortable with the culture now. I feel very comfortable with the way they do business, and at some level, I even prefer the way they do it here. If you compare it to the way we do in Brazil, now I wouldn't go back
It's
and
tough.
do it the way I used to do
I mean, I
before.
spent
No,
time in
I
Rio
would
de
enjoy it.
Janeiro, which is probably the worst of Brazil, and Belo Horizonte is definitely more serious in terms of doing business. But I think it's a hard market, and you have to be patient in Brazil, where it seems like in the U.S. people make decisions faster, and you can kind of get to work sooner.
I think the word that describe is they are more straightforward, and in Brazil we are not. We want to see how much advantage we can take of it. We basically want that the vendor, the product seller, they beg for us to sell, and that's completely the opposite direction that we have in here. You got to present something good. You got to present the benefits to the customer, but it's a very straightforward
Yeah,
conversation.
take it or leave
You can
it.
say,
I've never heard
yeah, you
that.
can say whatever you want, but of course in a polite way,
Yeah.
with good manners, of course. But you can say what you want. You can say, it's very different from
Yeah,
the way
that's
we
a
do
really interesting point. Like in Brazil, like in terms of feedback or like negative like response. It's like kind of impolite. I remember I complained at a restaurant once in Brazil, and everyone looks at me like I was crazy, and I was just like, the steak was overcooked, and it's like, oh, just no, just live with it. Don't do anything about it.
No, here if you say the steak is overcooked or whatever, they don't ask questions to
No,
you. They just
they
go
give
and they
you a new
replace it.
steak, and then they'll probably throw in a dessert and
Exactly, and apologize for it. Exactly. So that's the kind of environment that I am right now, which I don't feel like coming back because I can't do that. Not saying bad stuff over Brazil. I love my country. That's not the thing. But the way we talk, the commercial way we do this talking, it's very different, you know. And now I can appreciate that. And to be honest with you, the majority of my clients, they are American. Even though I'm Latino, and even though
And that's super
I'm
impressive that you're
from Brazil,
selling to Americans right after moving here.
majority, yes. I had a Chinese guy once, I had a Turkey guy once, but I don't know. Everybody else is American, you know.
And what was harder? And this, it's like, could be a trick question, like adapting to the business side and business culture with your career, or on the like the personal and family side, adapting to the lifestyle here in South Florida.
Let's call it me and my wife,
Yeah.
right? I started in a very easy personal adaptation. And especially because in the beginning I was still traveling a lot to Brazil for business purpose, so I was still seeing my family and etc. And she was having a rough time, but she was doing well with she was doing an MBA at the time. So let's say on the business I was struggling on the beginning. My path here was a little
And you
different. I had a
opened
lot
like
of
right in the middle of COVID, right? Or beginning of COVID.
the beginning of
Yeah.
the COVID. I opened in February 2020.
It's tough.
So on a personal side, in the beginning, I was better than my wife, but then after some time, things like reversed. I started a couple of like a year ago. I started to feel more like I miss more my family. I miss more my social side. I miss
Yeah.
more my friends. You know, my goal here is to have a little more quality of life, so I can travel more. I can see them more. I can see my parents. They're growing old. You know what I'm talking about. Um, and my wife now she's more adept, so we kind of reverse the
That's
papers, you
probably good
know.
though. You're a
Yeah,
united
yeah,
unit, and you both were there for each other's struggles, but didn't go through exactly the at the same time both.
exactly. Not exactly the same time. Yeah, that's perfect. Exactly.
And how has it been, scaling during COVID, going from zero to, closing a lot of business over the last couple years?
That was the hardest thing I ever done in my life. That was the
What
hardest
would
one.
you say? Was it?
That was the bottom line of my
Yeah.
life. You know, I never had such a bad time in my life
Did you feel like you
like
were
it
just
was.
getting going again, like in your career after having like a successful career in Brazil and then just kind of starting from zero, or?
It's because I didn't start. That's the
Yeah.
point.
Okay.
I when I opened my doors, I waited, not waited, but because I was working. But again, during COVID, there was no work, right?
Yeah.
My first customer took me six
Yeah.
months.
So that's a
So
mental
imagine
struggle that
me.
you're waiting, trying to sell.
Exactly, exactly. At some point, I thought that I was going to give up before my first sale.
I
You
think
know, at
every
some
every
point.
franchisee I interview, or every entrepreneur for that matter, usually in the first year or two, there's definitely a point where for a week they were going to close the business, and then they pass
Yeah.
through it, and they're glad they didn't close, but they were serious about closing the business down.
And I think my brain is protecting me because I don't even know anymore, Patrick, how I'll survive. I think my brain shut me down and like it's protecting me from remembering how it was during March through I don't know August, September 2020. I don't even know how I
And when did
survived.
it
You know, I don't even know
turn
what I
positive?
did. You know, it was so hard.
When did it become positive? Where you're like, okay, now I'm excited. I see the light at the end of the tunnel. You're getting American clients, and like, was there an inflection point, or was it kind of more just gradual?
Well, when I made my very first sale, when I got my first check that I looked and I called my wife, hey, I just got my $500 check. That's the first money I made in the US. I think that was a button that started like that. Now it's on me. You know,
It's
it
real.
turned it on. It's a switch that now it's on, and I said, okay, I can't go back anymore. So that's it. Once I finished my first sale, I already started the second one, and then I never stopped. I think it was just have some patience and go through whatever I had to go through. And once I started, I never stopped. You
Any
know.
idea like how many jobs your team has taken on like over the past couple of years since you've had the business?
Remember we just talked about I want to work in a certain
Yeah.
niche. So
You're not
I'm
doing
not the
volume, but
type
you're
of
doing high
no,
profit margin niche type. Yeah.
exactly. Last year, just so you understand, last year I worked with 13 clients only.
30.
We have locations from DreamMaker that they produce the same amount or even less than what I produced with more than twice as customer, like 30, 35, 40 customers to produce the same amount of volume that I
And it seems like
produced.
pretty wide range, right? For DreamMaker. Like I've spoken to other franchisees. There's some jobs that are like 30, 40K. And then there's other jobs that are like over $100,000, like for the
Yes,
engagement.
because I like challenges. I like big jobs. I'm always like that. So I like the big ones. I like full house remodels. I did 3 or 4 last year. I like full apartment remodels. I like to take on multiple rooms. So I like to spend my time with these bigger jobs, with these, you know what I mean? Instead of going out to 30 jobs at $30,000, that's not too much what I like to do. Of course, I take these jobs, of course, they're good to fill up, but what I definitely like to do is the bigger ones, the more luxury ones, the high quality ones. That's what I like to do.
And these clients that you're getting, like I imagine in the beginning when you first launched, or say, after 6 months getting that first client in, it was mostly advertisement. And now are you starting to get referrals, or how are you getting clients now? What are some of the best ways?
Well, DreamMaker has these 5 pillars of marketing, right? In the very beginning, I was doing the first couple of ones, which is traditional marketing, digital marketing. We spent a lot of money in the beginning because nobody predicted that there will be like a lockdown, so I waste a lot of
Oh,
money
damn.
in the beginning.
On just ads.
Yeah, imagine that. I put a lot of money, and now the world is
Yeah.
locked down, right? So that was very hard in the beginning. But once the things started, we had more organic clients. The majority of my customers, they come from Google. So I'm not gonna lie, the Google
Well,
it's a
and I'm
tool
sure
that
it
really
helps
helps
like
me.
that DreamMakers, the franchisor, is somewhat recognized because like if you Google in Hollywood, Florida, like some of those keywords like on the Google Maps pops up your business, so people can just reach
Yes,
out to you.
yes. I think we do a good job on being on the first page, on being on Google Maps, in with advertising. But I just recently had this very first customer coming back, and she's doing the
Oh
second bath,
wow,
on which
that's a
I'm
big
working right
deal.
now.
So this is the first
Yeah,
repeat customer.
and he was my first
Oh
customer. You
wow,
know,
that's sick.
it's interesting because my very first customer came back 3 years later. I did her job in 2020. Now I'm
Forget
doing
about
the
the
second
money
bath.
from this customer. Like just like emotionally, it must be like, wow, I'm doing something right. Like I didn't mess up the first job. He's coming back. Like this is great.
Exactly. Exactly. I had a second one coming back again, repeat business. I already had in the past someone doing business once, and then a couple of months later, they did something else, which is repeat business for sure, but it's not the same as someone coming back 3 years later, right? There's a little more spice on it, when something like this happens. And of course, I do have referrals. My biggest job so far, it was a referral from someone else. It happens.
And what's your plan, if you don't mind talking? You and your family's plan. Like, are you trying to apply for a green card right now? Have you already gone through that process, or is it something that you're thinking about down the line?
Yeah. I don't think I can apply for a green card. This should be under my wife's name. We're still looking at options, but one of the things are also money involved.
Yeah,
But at this point, I heard that they closed the window to apply for new green cards.
for
So
the
we're kind
EB
of
two
waiting.
NIW, it's
Yeah,
retrogressed, unfortunately. Hopefully, and I mean
yeah,
it's backlogged. I don't know, 8 or 9 months, but hopefully, come October, they release the numbers again and it becomes current.
exactly. So we're looking into this. Or if in worst case scenario, I got to renew my E2.
Yeah.
So we're still looking at options. We still have time because we still have probably 1 year and 8 months ahead of
Okay.
us. Yeah, so we're still good. Not that I need to rush, but I definitely want to do the green card stuff because I mean you can rest every day knowing that no problems will
And
happen, right?
as you have a company in Brazil, is there the possibility of doing an EB1C green card as you have like a common
Yeah, I
ownership?
don't I don't work. Yeah, I don't work in that company anymore. I don't have my name
Okay.
on it or anything. It's just like I do consulting but I don't work there. I don't have any income from Brazil or anything like that. So I don't think so. I don't think that's the right direction because we do have an opportunity to work inside. I don't need to use the company in Brazil
Exactly.
for anything. If I didn't have any possibilities, I could look into this, right? But I
There
still
should be
have these
easier
two
ones,
options.
whether it's EB2NAW for you or your wife, or potentially like employer sponsorship on your wife's side.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Any thoughts for people that are just starting the process? Because our services have changed quite a lot since we first met in Belo Horizonte. I don't know, 5 years back, 6 years back,
5 years ago,
where we're
six
offering
years
more
ago.
help with like the health insurance side, soft landing. So we have those services now, and they're more developed. But what do you wish that you had that would have made the transition smoother from like a business and or personal side that other people could have benefited from?
Patrick, can I be honest, my friend?
Please do.
There are no shortcuts in
Yeah.
life. There's no shortcuts. You can tell anybody whatever. You can send them all kinds of
Yeah.
tips and experience from someone else. They gotta leave their own experience. They gotta leave their own. You can help them with insurance, but trust me, I've been dealing with insurance for 4 years and I don't know anything about insurance. um, there are a lot of things that you only learn when you have your hands on. I learned how to get my credit. I learned how to do insurance. I learned how to do a lot of stuff living in here. And my experience may not apply to someone else's. I don't know. So even though you say, okay, we can start consulting on this subject, okay, you can make this person's life
Yeah.
slightly
At the end of
easier.
the day, they
I
have to
get
do
it,
it. And they're
but
the
they
ones
gotta
that
do
are
it.
going to live with the results or not.
Exactly. And that depends a lot on you. So that I can tell you, okay, do it this way and this way, and you simply don't do it in the exactly way I do it or I said, so the result, the outcome is not going to be the same. Again, there are no shortcuts in life. If you're thinking, if you're considering moving to another country, rest assured it will be hard.
I say
It's
one
not
to
going to
two
be
years is going to be
easy.
really tough. And if you're not willing to
Oh yeah.
brace that, then don't do it.
Oh yeah, and prepare financially. Don't think that you're gonna start a business and everything will be nice and you'll be getting lots of business because you heard stories that this painter that came from the Mexican border, now he has a company that worth $100 million. It happens, but that's not the reality.
I
That's not
generally
what
say
happens with
first year,
everybody.
don't count on anything. Any money that you earn from the business just goes right back in.
I would say two and
Yeah.
plus years. I would say prepare financially to be here with two plus years. And remember, in my specific case, because of the pandemic, the currency that from Brazil in dollars, it went like
Yeah.
50%. So the same money that I used to have in Brazil worth it 33% less because of the pandemic. So it was a very hard for us to absorb that, because I had planned like kind of plan, but that is one tip. Prepare financially for a minimally 2 years.
Well said. And a lot of people aren't going to have their spouse work, but I imagine it must be nice having someone that, up and down roller coaster of being an entrepreneur while there's also income coming in that's pretty stable month to month.
Well, yeah, that's a good point because in my case, my wife came to do the MBA. We didn't have a work permit until we applied for the E2 and etc. Of course, Patrick, if you have someone else helping you, I'm talking about when you're a sole proprietor or even if you have a business partner, doesn't matter. But you're doing a company, you're growing a company from the scratch. But of course, if you have a work permit, if you're here legal, and if you have the opportunity to work and bring income to your house, of course, things are a little easier. Okay, but it's not easy to get the first job. You're definitely not gonna get a good salary because I mean you just moved, you don't have experience, so don't count a lot on this. You
And
know,
remind me, was your English improved a lot over the past few years living in the US, or were you already speaking at a high level?
I speak it. Let's call it from 1 to 10. When I got here, I would say 8. I was an 8 when I
Okay.
first moved because I lived here in 2007, so I had some
That's right.
previous experience,
And I would say
and
now
I
you're like
and
a
I always
9.5.
yeah.
Because there's a lot of people,
Definitely
especially
by
from
10.
Brazil, that don't speak like pretty much any English and kind of think they're gonna invest in a business, whether it's a franchise or not, and have success here. And I always say, I warn them like, hey, if you don't speak English or at least fluent Spanish, it's going to be really difficult and your opportunities are going to be really small. So I say, hey, don't work
Oh
with
yeah,
us. Just use that money and hire an English tutor or whatever you need to do because I want you to be successful when you eventually come stateside.
I respect everybody's decision. I know people that lives here for 30 years and they don't speak English. I respect everybody's decision, but I will highly recommend people to learn
Yeah.
English for sure. The amount of opportunities, the it's much higher, you know, when you're good or even fluent in the language. I wouldn't. I'm gonna be honest. I would never feel comfortable moving to a country that I don't speak the language. You know, it seems like off. But again, I understand people's struggles. Maybe there's people that okay, I will never learn. I respect that, but to me, it doesn't work.
No, that's well said. I mean, it's like you have to put yourself in the reverse situation. Like if I moved to Brazil and my Portuguese is not, it's probably like a 6 or 7, but I would want to definitely get it better if I was going to start doing business in Brazil. But
Oh yeah,
if I spoke zero Portuguese and I was just going to move to Brazil and open up a business, like forget it.
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
have that extreme confidence that I'm gonna make it happen.
And especially in Brazil, because depending where you go, if you don't speak their language, they don't speak another language. So rest assured, you're not going to sell
Exactly.
anything.
Well, Antonio, thanks so much for agreeing to be on our interview and opening up both on a career side, personal side, and being frank with everyone about like the highs and lows and that you got to learn through experience. And the U.S. can be great, but it comes at a cost that can be pretty significant.
The American dream
Yeah,
exists. It's just not easy.
I like that.
It's just not easy. You gotta work hard for the
Yes.
American dream. that's
And
let's put it this way.
I kind of like that where I've said it's kind of linear, like the amount of work and time that you put into something in terms of like earning and earning potential. Where other countries, it could be much more based on other factors you can't control or relationships, like a family member is at a company or whatever. Where in the US, it's you work hard and it will work out. It might not work out right away, but it will eventually work out.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, the angle of this linear graphic they're trying to it is higher. You know, you reach the top faster if you play the right cards, if you do the right way.
Awesome, Antonio. Thanks so much again. Really appreciate it.
Patrick, thanks for having me. It was very nice to
Thank
see
you.
you again. Stay in touch.